Okay, so tell me a bit about yourself, what your job is, and what it
Okay,
entails.
I am John Mooney. I'm principal of Monsignor J.G. O'Brien. I've been a principal with Calgary Catholic School Division for 17 years. It's my 28th year of service with the board. We're a school division of 107 schools, 55,000 students in total, from kindergarten right through to grade 12.
Okay. What are your biggest pains around being a principal? So, for example, like the lunchtime, what is the biggest struggle that you would like to eliminate?
Okay, well, essentially what we're looking at is that Calgary Catholic operates in different kinds of models depending on the schools and the grade levels involved. If you are in an exclusively high school environment, that is grade 10, 11, 12, most of those schools have contracted vendors. So they contract their cafeteria service, they have companies that set up the cafeterias, maintain them, and they pay a contract rate to come into the school district to do that. More and more with the introduction of the new schools, they do less and less of it. Examples being Bishop Auburn, which is our newest high school that was just built over the last 10 years. And the contracted food service there is through private vendors, Cocoa Brooks, and private food services that are attached to the facility. If you go to the more traditional schools, Bishop Grandin, Bishop Carroll, they have contracted food servers, and they create menus and maintain their own menus separate apart from the school district.
Okay.
If you go into elementary schools, kindergarten through grade 6, there isn't a food service per se. Most of the service there is provided on a fun day kind of service format. Parents are encouraged to sort of provide lunches for their children or provide nutritious snacks for kids. And if you go to the K to 9s or 7 to 9s, the junior high schools, the middle schools, each of those schools provide for their own food service. The schools contract or make arrangements for vendors to provide for lunchtime kinds of needs. The program extends in all sorts of directions between everybody, and it varies from school to school because the principals hold control over that kind of program. In some schools it may not exist at all. In some schools it can be a full-blown canteen, tuck shop kind of arrangements where they offer not just lunch services but snacks and other kinds of miscellaneous food items for students' consumption. Each school is independently decided by the principal, so it depends on what the principal really is looking at doing and how he's able to provide that service within the building itself. For us, we are sort of between some of the more aggressive schools with their canteen shops and us with just a lunch program.
Okay. So how many companies have you worked with?
Through the course of my relationship with the school district, as a principal and a vice principal, I have dealt with about 6. Certainly the current one is Pizza Hut. I've been with them probably the longest. We've been with them in 2 schools, and in total about 6.5 years. Before that, we've worked with other pizza companies. We've worked with some hamburger companies. We had a private vendor called Executive Chef on the Go to provide services. And each one tried to come in and provide services, but to greater or lesser extent they were successful in that. Certainly the model we have right now, which is Pizza Hut, is certainly the most successful of the lot, certainly for a lot of reasons, that they are a very large chain and they're able to meet the expectations of the school.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what you like about them is that they're able to deliver on time.
Well, I guess it's really simple. For us, you know, there's some real basic kinds of things that are required if you're going to run a program inside of a school. And what we're really talking about is quality. Okay, so you have to have a quality product, something that is going to be something very serviceable, something that you can count on, and that is within the guidelines of Alberta health initiatives. So it's a company that was able to tailor its menu to meet those outcomes. Alberta Education does kind of dictate how we deliver healthy food. I think the next part is that it has to be able to provide a certain measure of quantity. It has to be enough food that somebody gets a nutritive value out of it. It can't just be a small little of this and a little small of that, because kids are hungry. Kids need to go forward. If they're fueled properly, then they're successful in school. I think that the consistency of the product is probably one of the biggest ones. I'll come back to that one in a second. But the consistency really is about the servings, what the servings are, the size of the servings, the quality of what the food looks like, that piece. But the consistency is also about the ability to deliver the goods within a time frame that is appropriate for it too. So schools go on bells. You can't say, well, you know, we're really sorry, lunch is going to be half hour late today, because schools don't operate that way. If a vendor can't provide it on a consistent format every time, then it causes all sorts of problems. Kids go hungry, parents are unsatisfied. It's about that consistency piece of it, and parents want to know that they're constantly going to be able to feed their children and have a really good product for them. The cost in and of itself isn't as much a problem, because parents will make choices whether they're going to buy or not. You know, so there can be a wide range on the costs. Fun food days can range anywhere from about $4 to about $7 a student, and generally encompasses an entree type item, sort of a snacky kind of item, either a piece of fruit or a cookie, sun chips, and some kind of drink, either milk or fresh juice. I think for the schools, the biggest issue is always about the convenience. And convenience isn't convenience in the typical kind of way. Convenience is about meeting the needs of the school in a time frame that works. So it's got to be very simplistic. It's got to be easy for the school to manage. It's got to be something very easy for the school to run, or something that it can be associated with. If it is complicated, if the vendor who's providing the service makes it complicated, the first thing that happens is we disassociate with it, because the source of revenue stream that generally comes to the school, and vendors tend to create a set price, and then the school takes a small percentage on top to augment program development or to provide for more programs within the school. It has to somehow be equivalent to it. The amount of pain that you're going to do for a very small return is not significant enough to it, and we're not going to commit a lot of resources to the delivery of the product itself. You know, within the construct of all of this is a whole bunch of other kinds of things. It's really interesting when you run a lunch program inside of a school, is that if the school is involved in the preparation of the food, then the school has to be site licensed. And that's done through Calgary Health Authority. It requires food inspectors to come in, Calgary Health Authority inspectors to come in. It requires staff to be trained in food handling procedures. And depending on what you're serving, we have to have site inspections for food delivery and all sorts of things. So it becomes very complicated to deliver that kind of a service. Mm-hmm. Health inspectors, particularly where you're dealing with children, really want to come in, and they're very careful in sort of the licensing aspect of it. The cleaner and simpler it is, the more that the vendor provides the service of handling the food, where we aren't involved in the preparation of it. That transfers from the school to the vendor, mm-hmm. and I'm more than happy to let them take on the responsibility of that. They make the profit for being able to provide safe and caring kind of facilities, things that meet Calgary Health Authority and food inspectors. Mm-hmm. They also provide for the insurance of all of those kinds of things. If I do food preparation, I have to carry liability insurance to cover that preparation, that possible food poisoning or food contamination, or an employee who's handling food improperly. It takes on a lot of liability for me. So our vendors all carry quite extensive insuring policies to make sure that they are protected should something go wrong as well.
Right. So. And you'd want them to have all of the licensing, and then you'd want them to provide the meals in a way that they're not handling it?
I think
Like-
that the best one of all, and I'll speak to the program I've got now because it's the one I love the best. They come pre-packed. The lunches come pre-packed. They're in their own individual containers. The students are handed their container. They come to they pay for their lunch. They're handed a self-contained container. And when they take it, because our students have lunch and they sit on the floor. We don't sit at tables. We're not at chairs. They sit on the floor. So these lunches are self-contained boxes. The food stays inside the boxes. The students don't set it anywhere but in the box. Very sanitary, very clean, and it's very self-contained. The kids simply close the box at the end of it and dispose of the containers. So it's a very healthy kind of exposure to everybody.
What would you add to the way that Pizza Hut runs their system to make it better?
I think that the biggest part of all, and I've over the years I've really become convinced of this, is that the vendors forget that they have clients, that it becomes so ingrained that they're simply going to deliver product that they stop innovating and they stop looking at how they can better meet the needs of clients. Schools are closed environments. They're the ideal consumers because we don't create competitive spaces. When somebody comes in, if you can deliver a quality product, a quality program, we don't have to go outside and shop for other kinds of programs. The problem is that generally speaking, companies become lazy because they just assume the business continues on. Mm-hmm. They're not seeking to innovate the program. They're not seeking on how to improve service. They take for granted that the clientele is always going to be there. The problem is if you're not innovating product, if you're not trying to vamp up the product some, even from a self-contained environment perspective,
Lindsay, can you just let me know once you found them?
Students will begin to go into the neighborhood. They will begin to go home for lunch. They will go home. They will go to the local stores, Tim Hortons and Mac's and all those places to pick up food. Mm-hmm. You know, it's up to the company to create that loyalty branding that goes with it. Now, Pizza Hut, more than any other company, and through the course of it, I really have dealt with a whole bunch of national chains. Pizza Hut is probably the most cognizant of their corporate image. They really do worry about what that quality consistency piece looks like. If it's not done well, they tend to really come back and try to fix the issue or the problem. They do listen when I call them. However, they really should be trying to follow up and occasionally touching base with us and say, is there a way we can improve the product? Is there a way that we can make it better? Because I will be honest, if there was a vendor that was better, I would move. Because it's about simplicity, consistency, quality, but that whole convenience piece from the school perspective, the less I do it, the better it is for me, right?
Yeah.
And when we're talking about a 40-minute lunch hour, we're not talking about a whole bunch of variety of times and allowing a lot of failures. I dealt with a previous national chain, and they could never get the product here on time. They never could get it on time. They would set out and they would phone and say, oh, our drivers can't come today. We'd have to go pick up the food, the kids would be hungry, the lunch would be delayed an hour, like it was awful. And the first thing that happened is they lost business. And they lost not one school, they didn't lose two schools, they lost all the schools because that was the history of what it is. Interesting, they keep coming back and trying to create this, ooh, we have a lunch program, nobody trusts them. Nobody has any faith in what it is. And they have a terrible point in trying to create even a foothold inside of the company, into the school, in order to make that lunch program work. Was the product good? The product was good. Was the quality good? The quality was good. But the consistency, the simplicity was not. You know, as I'm dispatching my own staff to pick up product, doesn't work. I have to pay my own employees to go and take care of things that shouldn't have ever been part of what I had to do. So they simply are gone. Would they ever come back? Never. Never. In the wildest dreams.
Okay. You talked a little bit about what these companies would be giving back. Mm-hmm. So what would you expect from a company that you used to feed your students? What would you expect back from them?
I think that one of the things that becomes clearer to me is that it's about being part of a community partnership arrangement. And I think that it's not enough for a company to want to come in and exploit the consumer base it has access to. It needs to be able to give back. Now, whether it identifies a product that it would provide, such as, you know, we really support daily physical activity initiatives inside of the school. That's a province-wide initiative by mandate, where they would provide phys ed equipment, or if they provide revenue stream where the school can subsidize field trips or technology or all of those things. Somewhere the vendor has to be able to come up with an incentive for the school to engage in part of the process with it. Probably the most interesting one I saw was a vendor recently has a plan where they provide back a donation. They do all the orders in the schools for school supplies. And what's really interesting is they call it, well, we're going to give you a donation. You buy our product, we'll give you a donation. As I looked at this thing, it's really interesting because when they categorize it as a donation, I think they derive the ability to claim it as a tax incentive. So really, corporately, it looks really good for them. They sort of say, you know, we donate to schools, we donate to children, but they also write it back against their corporate allowances. So really what they're giving me is nowhere near what they get the benefit of driving it from. So, you know, if they're giving me, say, 10%, and it comes out to $200, when they claim it back on their taxes, they're simply out of pocket probably about 40–50% anyway. So it's a really massively good thing, and they put up all the time on their websites and their advertising saying, you know, as a company, we support children, we support schools, we donated back to schools all of these things, which is fascinating to me. I've never seen it done before. I think it's a great plan. It's just fascinating to watch, that's all.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So from hearing parents' feedback, what would you say they like and dislike most about the food vendors that you have now?
I think that the parents really do value the daily product coming into the school. I think that the parents would like a wider range of product. However, once again, I go back to the position of simplicity within the school. I personally don't have time to go and try to oversee a menu. I just don't have that kind of time nor capacity. I don't have the staff resources to do that. When I do it, what we do is we do a multiple item menu that kids can choose from. It's a very standardized menu that comes every day, and it's sort of served out through the course of the day. I think that if a vendor was sort of offering a wider range or could vary it some, that, you know, parents could go online and say, you know, this is what the menu is going to be, we're going to contribute into this, we're going to buy it. Certainly parents would buy that a great deal. Typically in a lunch program that I have running in the school right now, and has been in the schools previously, we serve somewhere between about 9.5% of our students and 16% of our students on a daily basis. And that's true of every school, whether it's bigger or smaller. I think that when you're talking about that kind of numbers, you know, it doesn't seem like a lot until you begin to try to take a look at it in the perspective of a weekly kind of program or multiple school site program. You know, I think that if you have 1,000 students and you're providing, you know, 100 to 150 lunches a day, you know, that's not bad numbers. You begin to multiply it out, you're getting into the range of 500 to 1,000 lunches a day, and then you begin to look at this thing, and over the course of it, you're looking now on a 36-week school calendar, you're looking at some very serious kinds of revenue streams that are coming out of schools.
And it's definitely making the business scalable because you can move to new schools. If you're constantly making your product better, more students are going to buy.
That's right. The nice part of it is if a product works, if a service works, the schools are always in contact with one another. They're looking for that kind of service venue that will take care of all of those kinds of needs, provide for the needs of the students, and provide that small addition to the school, that revenue stream or that technology stream or whatever that is, to come into the school. You know, I think that going back and looking at the company where the fellow was an executive chef, and he had come through being an executive chef with Moxie's, he had found this company, and it was a great thing. His problem was he offered great product lines, but he lost his ability to do the scale because he couldn't manage his growth. His biggest problem was he couldn't project his growth. He couldn't continue to deliver it because he didn't have the scale that he needed to do. He needed that capacity to be able to grow and meet the needs of it, whether it was subcontracting it, whether it was finding vendors to take care of it, all of those things. Right now, the biggest problem we've got is that companies really want to access schools and they don't know how to get into them. The answer is quality, consistency, and cost. That's really the fundamentals of it. What they want to do is they say, well, you know, we are a big corporation. Nobody cares. What a principal is looking for is the ability to provide service to the community, allow the kids to have a good quality, consistent product, and make it simple. I go back to it all the time. It's simple, 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 and everybody is constantly trying to overdo the thing. Give me quality of program, give me a quality service. It can coexist here for years. It should be painless to me. But the problem is the vendors say, well, you know, if it doesn't go well, they can call us. Parents don't call the vendors. Parents call the school because the program is offered by the school. It's not offered by the vendor. So if it goes wrong, if the food quality is not good, if they burn the product, if the food is undercooked, overcooked, cold or hot, the parents' issue is with the school. It's not with the vendors. And so principals, the ultimate decider of the vendors in this case, decide whether the vendor gets a say or not. A little pain, not a problem. Daily pain, the program doesn't stay. Rather be without than to have somebody who causes me pain all the time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Would you say that just generally it's more the elementary or the junior high that order food?
I would tell you, honestly, in all of my experiences, where it exists in schools, it's equal throughout the entire building. Parents particularly like the convenience with elementary students. They like that ability on that Monday, that Wednesday, that Friday, that payday, to be able to give their child a nice treat. You know, and a hot lunch is a really nice treat. Over the winter, we see better sales. You know, the more engagement by the students buying product because they get to buy a nice hot lunch program. You know, the kids enjoy it. Parents enjoy delivering it. All of those things are part of it. As we go into the summer, we begin to look at how we offer a slightly different menu to meet the needs of the kids. So what we do begin to look at is we offer still sort of the basic hot menu items, but we begin to enrich it with things like an ice cream bar, you know, instead of a drink. Like it begins to change the offerings, and that's part of it. Junior high students typically want to buy lunch. You know, if you take a look at the course of society's move all over, is that the convenience of going out and getting lunch is way more than sitting at home and trying to make your lunch up at night. So our junior high kids really enjoy engaging in that process. They like coming and buying their lunch. The cost of the lunch isn't excessive, so it is very doable for them. They have disposable money, and whether they're spending the money here to get lunch or going to Tim Hortons and buying a donut is really irrelevant to them. They want to just buy their lunch and sort of have that convenience of being able to eat it. So it's equal about the group, both of them. We do see a lot more sales typically of lunches on the Mondays, the Fridays. Fridays are really big. Typically we see them around paydays, so mid-month and end of month are huge. Generally will spike into a range of about 24–25%. And that brings me back to a really important part, I think, is the flexibility of the vendor providing the service to be able to meet those changing needs. In my program, we have a standing order every day for a certain number of lunches. The vendor is something we can give a call by 10 o'clock. We say, you know, we have confirmed the amount of lunches, we need more lunches, and they're able to deliver the quantity of lunches that we need. So, well, we have a standing order for 80 or 90 lunches a day. If we know there's going to be 150, the vendor is able to adapt to the program and still within the time frame be able to deliver those lunches to us. The most important thing for us is no child will go hungry And usually when parents send money, some of them are last minute and some of them need to be able to take care of that, they send it along with it. So we have that capacity with our vendor currently that they can add more lunches to the program really rapidly and be able to deliver it to us. If we really run short even after all of that, they have that capacity where if we make a call, we can have it, again, the product line somewhere, a much more simplified menu. We limit the choices on the second round to a lot easier menus that the vendor can provide to us really rapidly, but it's high value to the kids, so it might be macaroni and cheese and or pizza, those kinds of things that we can pick up really easily and every child gets fed. So by 1 o'clock, typically every student in our building is fed, whether the food was on site or if we had to add addition to it.
Okay. So what do you think would give our company a competitive advantage? Do you think getting kids excited about nutrition is something that's really important?
I don't know that kids ever get excited about nutrition, okay? I do think that nutrition is something that has some interest to parents. I think that nutrition has a real interest to schools because we have mandates that require it. So I think that when a company can show that it meets the guidelines that are put in place by policy and regulation, that's really good, because a vendor that can show that is more likely to get through my door for a conversation than somebody who doesn't understand that those kinds of rules and regulations exist. I think that for parents, when they know that they're getting a quality product that is healthy for their child, they're more likely to engage in it than not. However, a child, if you said, this is really good for you, that doesn't work really well. So a child still at the end of the day would rather have French fries than a celery stick. You know, a child would rather have a chocolate bar than an apple slice. Part of it is how you package it and how you present it to the child. I do think that opportunities are missed in that you can provide, you know, the small incentive for the child to engage in the process of doing it. You know, if you look at things like McDonald's as a corporate model where they have their Happy Meals and there's a small incentive for the child to engage in that program, I think that's true. I think it can be really simple at a school level. I think that given the opportunity to have a coloring opportunity or have puzzle pieces that they can put together or you know, have a riddle of the day that sort of allows it, will engage kids into that piece of trying to do. Yeah. It's really interesting that through the course of this, at different times we've tried sort of even providing through the lunch program effective menus for parents who may not want to buy lunch every day, but they get this effective menu, this nutritious menu of choices that they might be able to prepare for their child. So the parent says, you know, here's a vendor that's really concerned. We buy lunches from them quite regularly. However, if we wanted, this might be something our child can participate in. So I think the opportunity is missed in that extra piece. It's not just lunch. You're selling an entire package, an entire service of packages that have benefit. If a company could show me that they could somehow show kids what the healthy alternatives are, certainly we'd be really interested in it as a school body, because that's really good for us to connect to our stakeholders, our parent group and our legislators and all those things that show that we're really engaged in that piece of healthiness, bad English, but it's what we're looking at, or that nutritious component. You know, I'm not convinced that maybe there isn't an avenue that says, you know, there's the possibility of two different sizes, like a smaller portion size for small children and a larger portion size for older children. You know, there's a whole bunch of opportunities that are sort of missed in this, and I don't think it has to be complex. I don't think that people have to create this big, complicated menu in order to meet the needs of kids, because I think when you create the right product line, when you offer the things that kids like, and kids will tell you what they like, then when you offer that, you can offer that other little piece, that healthier piece, that you might be able to entice them into doing. Certainly the more choice, the more variety that you have, the better the kids like it. For us, we have an 8 menu item. So all of those 8 menu items are something that the kids get to sort of choose from, and based on our experience, we order the number of items that we need.